Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. I will speak in English because, my English is not good, but my Spanish is terrible. So. On Tuesday, we spoke about math and the foundations of information theory. Based, I showed you the proof of both channel theorem, which form the basis of all information theory. Now we're going to see some physics, I think. I'm going to talk about three things, if I have time, actually. The first one is an application of classical information theory. The second one is an application of quantum information theory, both to thermodynamics. And this is a very interesting thing because it's a quantum phase transition, but it's about thermodynamics also, but instead of happening with when we change some parameter like the magnetic field or temperature, it happens when we change time. So it's intention. And we are starting building a thermodynamic theory for this thing. Let us see if we have time. But why this? Because dissipation in classical physics, also quantum physics, is extremely difficult to compute. Very, very hard to compute dissipated energy. And here, we link the complexity, which is also difficult to compute, but with dissipation. And why I chose this thing? Because first of all, it's an application of thermodynamics, and second, it can introduce a different measure in classical information theory, which is complexity, which is extremely nice thing. So, the motivation of this thing. As I told, heat and work are extremely problematic in quantum mechanics. These things depend on the trajectory in phase space. Since in quantum mechanics you don't have trajectory, defining these things in quantum mechanics is extremely difficult. That's why you use information theory, because information theory can be translated from classical to quantum world, and then we can define thermodynamic quantities in terms of the efficiency in information processing. And that's generating. So here we started this thing with a student of mine that now is in Spain, with the quantum version of this guy. But the problem is that the quantum version is impossible to do. Until now, we don't know what to do. But the classical thing is done. It's here. And what's the goal here? The goal is to describe a dynamical system in terms of communication system. In order for us to be able to use the tools for information theory to link with dissipation. I'm not going to convince you that this is possible. We are not able to compute the dissipation thing. We are just able to put a lower bound on it. Because even the computation of this thing is extremely different. The bound is different. Computing the thing is a very hard problem. First, some aspects of information physics. I don't know if how many of you know this paper here. This paper is very nice because this guy Jane is here. He derives the entire statistical theory, classical statistical mechanics, from the maximization principle applied to channel. This is a very nice paper. I recommend everybody to read this guy. It's extremely nice. Equilibrium thermodynamics is amazing paper. And then there also this guy here, Landauer, that studied algorithmic complexity. This guy is a guy from computer science. He was studying computer science and then realized that logical reversibility must imply physical reversibility. And this is because to make sense, we needed to codify information into a physical system. So information must follow the laws of physics. If I have some irreversibility, logical reversibility, this must imply physical reversibility. Which is interesting is that this paper was published in 61, the first paper, where Landauer put his principle, and in 1981, Charles Bennett used this guy to finally solve the problem Max Otto. 100 years after Carl's work. then we understand that the Maxwell theorem didn't actually violate the second law. And this is a review paper on information physics. It's very nice. Some results that will be important here. First of all, it was proven in this paper that the dissipated work, that is the thing that we want to compute here, which is given by when I have a process that takes the system from one equilibrium state to another state out of equilibrium. And then you have to perform this average work to do this transformation. And this is the difference in free energy between the initial equilibrium state and the final reference state, the final energy of the system, the same temperature. It was proven that this guy can be written like this. This is the relativity that you saw last Tuesday. And this guy is the probability distribution at the time t, and this guy is the probability distribution, the reverse protocol. So what it's saying here is that the dissipated work, which are proportional to the entropy, the thermodynamic entropy, is given by how much you can distinguish between the forward and the backward process, which makes sense. This is basically the definition of irreversibility. If I can distinguish past from the future, the system is irreversible. So this is a mathematical result, which is extremely nice. Later was extended to the quantum realm. Right. If anyone wants to ask the question, just raise the hand. Another result that's very nice is predictive power. This is the state of the system at time t, and this is the state of the system at time t plus 1. It doesn't matter the units. It was proven that this guy, this equality holds. This is the information that the system retains in the past during the evolution. And this is how much we can predict the future given the actual state of the system. So this guy is always bigger than this guy, which means that this guy is positive because this guy is positive because this is positive. So it doesn't matter what you do. In any evolution, the best thing that you can do is dissipate at zero energy, or you can lose, you always lose your predictability. Always, this always happens for whatever process you are dealing with. So these are very nice results. What do we want to do? We want a connection between the randomness and dissipation. I mean, how random the process is and how much energy is dissipated. We actually can build this relation by describing the system in terms of communication theory. We just let the system, we transform the system into a communication system, and then we are able to do this. How? The system here is described by S. I ask sorry because S it was used to label the entropy, but S now is the system. The system is coupled to an environment, which makes the system, the initial state of the system be a thermal equilibrium state until t equals 0. From this time on, we decouple the system from the environment, and the system is evolving under time-dependent Hamiltonian, a general time-dependent Hamiltonian. So I'm talking about Hamiltonian systems that does fulfill Liouville theorem. And all the processes we're going to take a time. This is the reference of the paper. It's me, one student of mine, and two friends. So, what class of system we're dealing with? This one. We have the Hamiltonian of the system. This is the state of the system. This is lambda, which is external parameter. That's controlled externally. It doesn't matter. It's an external function. But these is just a point in phase space at time t. This is generalized coordinate and generalized momentum. And so canonical coordinates. Gamma will denote the finite dimension of phase space. Infinite dimensional phase space is a little bit complicated, but it can be extended to infinite dimensional case. And the system, as I told you, is in thermodynamic equilibrium in each end. The system is there in thermodynamic equilibrium. This is the partition function. This is it is just the Boltzmann factor. and the partition function is computed like this. The integral is defined over the entire phase space. Okay? So, since the evolution is Hamiltonian, it follows Hamilton's equation. So, the dynamical system we are interested in is described by these three things here, which is the phase space, the probability, which is defined on the phase space, is a measure of the phase space, and the flux. The flux phi of t is defined from these equations here. So this flux is just an isomorphism from the phase space to itself. It's generated by the Hamiltonian. So this is the evolution. This is given the time evolution of the system. This is the probability over the sigma of the sigma here. And here we have the differential channel entropy, because these variables here are continuous. So we have to use a properly defined density, probability density, and this is the channel entropy for continuous case. On Tuesday, we saw this thing for the discrete case, now it's continuous. So everything here works as long as the support of the probability lies here. So this integral is only defined on the support of this guy. Otherwise, this guy is infinite and we have problems. So this is the class of problems that we are considering here. Information communication system. Communication system, as we saw, is associated with discrete symbols that you call the alphabet that occurring X from Tuesday to some receiver, according to a given probability distribution. So to map our system into a communication system, we need to define the alphabet and we need to define the probability distribution. Then you are describing the system as a random variable, and you have everything that you need. Okay, here I put this guy here. It's Kolmogorov sign IM. This is a very important quantity in information theory and also in dynamical systems, because it quantifies the randomness of a process. And you can define this thing for every message that you have, as long as the message is big enough. You define this thing and it quantifies how random that message is. It's a thing that used in algorithmic complexity, then they started using in dynamical systems.
This is like this, I hear people say this is the size of the algorithm you would need to produce such a string of symbols, for example, right?
The minimum size that a Turing machine needs to imprint the output.
So if it's random, you need to just write down all the symbols because
Exactly. This is the maximum point. It's 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, you just need one. So I will show more of this the physical interpretation of this guy later. Because for now it's just a quantity that we will define in a bit. So how do we do this? We partition the phase space. We call A some partition of the phase space. Partition of the phase space is just dividing the phase space into small subsets. As long as these guy, if these alpha and alpha prime belong to some partition, alpha intersection with alpha prime is the empty set. They do not intersect. If they are different elements. So I just partition the phase space in some sense. And the union of all the alphas, of course, must give you the entire phase space. So, is the core secret. Then another thing that you need to define Kolmogorov entropy is refinement. Refinement is like this. At some interval of time, at some instant of time, we have the phase space here, and then a partition. In this case, just 2 elements. And then we apply our map, Hamiltonian flux, that evolves the system like this. This is the partition that evolved from alpha, and this is the partition that evolved from alpha prime. It doesn't need to be this, but it's just like that. And then the refinement is defined by this guy here. Is this symbol here that I don't know the name of the symbol, but it's this symbol here. A and 5. So each of the new partition, this defines a new partition that's alpha intersection of alpha A, so this guy intersection of this guy intersection of this guy, this with this and this with this, and we have a smaller partition. That's why it's called refinement. Okay? So the refinement is mathematically defined like this. So we understand what refinement is. We can go further to define our system. So we consider the term as discrete variable. This is not a very severe restriction, since every experiment we do is discrete in time. There's no way to measure a continuous variable. It's impossible. So we still know this. We needed to measure intervals of time, otherwise it makes no sense. The time evolution is dictated by interactions of this guy here. So every time the map acts on the system, we have the system and a new time. So the phase space alphabet is simply the trajectory of the guy. So given an initial condition, which is here, the system lies in one of the partitions here, or one of the elements of this guy. Then we have the evolution of the partitions, and this is our alphabet. I have infinitely many terms, but it doesn't matter. They are countable set. This is a countable set. We can deal with it, and we define this thing. So this is our alphabet. This is the information source is our system, and the source will emit these guys, one of these guys, according to a certain probability distribution that we will compute on. Okay, so homograph Sinai, now I can define homograph Sinai for this guy. And it's defined like this. It's extremely hard to compute. First, we need to define a corresponding entropy. So we define a corresponding entropy for giving the probability of every element of the partition. This guy means that this is the probability of the system at some point in time be in this element of the partition. So to define it, I can define the entropy associated with this partition like this, which channel entropy of this probability distribution. Now it's discrete because this guy is discrete. And this is the randomness of the dynamical system. I mean, how random is the sequence of this? Here I changed the time from positive to negative because it's easier to do the calculation like this. But it makes no sense because the system follows Hamilton's equation. So the variance and the time errors. So the system is deterministic. It doesn't matter if you call t minus t or not. So we call it minus because it's easier to do the calculation like this. So this is the guy. This is the convertible scenario. So this is the limit when t goes to infinite one time. And this guy, we have to maximize this guy to find the partition that maximize this quantity over all possible partitions. But there are infinitely many partitions. So this is extremely hard to compute this guy. This is called the generating partition. So homograph scenario is very, very hard to compute, but there is a theorem that says that, interesting, this guy, for this kind of systems, this guy is equal to the sum of the positive Lyapunov exponents. Does everybody know what Lyapunov exponent is? No? Lyapunov exponent is a thing. If we start with a patching phase space, the probability distribution is a patching phase space, and then we start evolving the system, or even trajectories, two trajectories of phase space extremely close together, and then we start evolving this guy. If the system is chaotic, the Lyapunov exponent, at least one of them will be positive, which means that these trajectories will deviate exponentially faster. The rate is the positive Lyapunov exponent. So this is a quantification of chaos. This is how we quantify chaos in the dynamical system. And this guy is equal to the sum of the positive exponents. So this guy is a quantification of how complex the system is. It means that, why partitions? Because this guy, the system is deterministic. So if I have a point in phase space, I know exactly which point the system will be. But if the system is if I can only look at a small patch in the phase space and not point-wise, then this guy quantifies the following. As the system evolves, information is going to develop smaller and smaller structures in phase space. If this guy is complex, if the guy is chaotic. So information is going to be put inside each patch, and I'm going to lose information over time. The rate of losing information is this guy. That's the physical meaning of this guy. It's how fast I lose information. That's why we are using this guy to quantify dissipation.
And what's so that's what the importance of this refinement?
Yeah.
Is how you have to scale the space to.
No, the refinement must be done because otherwise I can simply do this. I divide my entire phase space in two, and I lost a bunch of information, but this means nothing because I'm just looking at nothing. So I need to keep evolving and find the partition, that maximizes this guy. So this is called the generating partition, is the one we use it to define this guy. And in this way, you can prove that this guy is equal to the sum of the positive level of exponents. So it's exactly the rate of in which information is being lost because you don't have access point-wise to phase space. But of course, this is very hard to compute. The level of exponents are difficult to compute, but easier to do. It's doable. I mean, to compute the level of exponents is doable. This is not doable. So this guy we can compute, but this one, this is practically impossible. But luckily we have the theorem. The problem is that this guy has no quantum knowledge because there is no phase space. There is no trajectory there. So a bunch of people tried to define this guy in quantum system. We have several definitions, but all of them present some inconsistencies, and so the product we don't have this guy here, and that's why we're not able to do this thing in quantum mechanics.
When is this equal to the level of exponent?
For every Hamiltonian system, for every system that fulfills Liouville theorem.
Oh.
If your system fulfills Liouville theorem, it's a Gaussian system, then it's going to be equal to the sum of the positive in the following. Always. It's called the Bruno theorem. So, I'll not go to the proof. The proof is a little bit messy. I'll just give you an idea of the proof. And then, of course, if anyone wants to discuss the details of the proof, I'll be more than okay to do this. So, every initial condition generates a trajectory. Every single one. So this is the system here at time t equals 0, then it's being this element of the partition, of the new partition, in time t equals 1, and so on. So we have a trajectory there. It's a set of elements of the partition. From this, we can define the probability, the coarse-grained conditional probability. That's it. Which is this guy here. This guy is the probability density for the system to be at time t at this point in phase space, given that was the trajectory until time t minus 1. So it's the conditional probability. This is defined as simply like this. This is the volume of the partition, which is the integral of the partition. It quantifies how many microstates you have there. And this is just a function that guarantees that it is 0 when we are out of the partition. So, what we do? Like Shannon, it's easier to compute expectation values than the value of this guy. The entropy of this guy is extremely hard to compute. But the expectation value is easy. So, we compute the expectation value. Shannon taught us this. And then we related we were able to relate these expectation value with the conformance and entropy, because the entropy here goes here, and then the rate appears here because of this T here, so this is a rate. And then we related these things, and then we already have the relation between this guy and this guy, which one of the few first slides that I showed you. Now we just need to relate this guy, the entropy, with this guy. But that's easy because we know this thing. And then we have a relation between this guy and this guy. That was the goal of the thing. So this is the sketch of the proof, the details and the paper, and then we can, of course, discuss this. The result is this. Okay, this is the final result. This I here is this guy here. And these quantities are defined like this. And this is the free energy. But then I say, okay, what the hell does this mean? This means this. Okay? So this is the result. This guy here is the convection entropy that we want. And what's happening here? We define hidden information. Hidden information is the difference between the channel entropies before and after the impulse course rate. So it's the information that we lost because we of course brain is phase-space. It's not due to the dynamics of the system, it's just because we of course brain in the guy. So this we call hidden information. So d equal to 0 is this guy here. It's the minimum hidden information because you can prove that this relation holds. So the minimum hidden information. So this guy, which implies that this guy is the maximum information that's not hidden. And then we can compute this guy over here. This is the time average. And this is exactly equal to the time average of this guy, which is. So it's the average hidden information. So when we compute this guy and put it here, we see that this guy is the minimum average hidden information. So this guy is the maximum average information that's not hidden. So this is the information that you lost because of the dynamics of the system, because the dynamics is complex. What you're saying here is that dissipated work is equal to this guy, which is the average energy, minus the free energy, which is the usual statement of the second law, that this guy is bigger than this guy, and equal only if the system is reversible, minus this guy, which is the entropy that we, with the information related about the dynamics, that is the information that we actually lost because of the complexity of the system, of the evolution. And this only depends on the dynamics of the system, nothing more. It doesn't depend on the part. Anything here depends on the partition because of that maximization procedure. So that's the main result. That's the significance of the main result. Any question? Okay. I know, it's a little bit fast and complicated. I mean, you can ask a question. Take home answer for this guy. So the first thing, new tools for studying thermodynamics, which means you understand the system, the physical system as a communication theory system, and then you can use the tools coming from there. And what you get in the end is a link between the dynamic quantity, which is the common and high entropy, and the macroscopic one, which is dissipated work. Because this guy is only defined as macroscopically. Microscopically, there is no meaning in dissipation, there is no meaning in work, heat, or entropy, or anything like this. I mean, microscopic systems, if you have access to microscopic degrees of freedom, everything is reversible, always. The fundamental laws of physics are reversible, and that's it. So, extension to open quantum system, because this is closed system. Extension to open quantum system is an open question. We never try to do this. No Markovianity, how this changes no Markovianity? Because no Markovianity is going to increase this guy. So we don't, we never try to do this. And quantum case, this is a mess. This is a mess because we don't have a guy like this. We have several possibilities that are even stranger than this one. So is hard, but maybe it's possible because we know that we can describe a communication theory in quantum physics as well. It's well defined there. So maybe it's possible to do this, but we don't know. Okay, any questions? We're going to change subjects.
Can you show the relation again, I think the last slide? Okay, so as you said, the Komodorov complexity, like for example, for an algorithm, I mean, it's impossible to compute, right? It's something you can define, but you can't compute it generally, right?
Not really, because Komorovs, these guys always define it something like this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the different dynamics that you have.
Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, so in terms of information theory, I know that you can, recently there's a result where you can relate this Kolmogorov entropy in informational sense to, say, security of, or existence of one-way functions in cryptography.
Yeah.
So, could you use, say, this dissipated work to somehow estimate or put a bound on, I mean, if you could suppose I implement some function with the computer, can I use the dissipated work in my circuit? I mean, even in a model, can I use this to somehow learn something about the Kolmogorov entropy
Well,
of the circuit?
This is a very interesting question, actually. I never thought about this because I never thought the other way around. I always think about information to thermodynamics and never the opposite way, but of course, I mean, if you can bound this guy uses thermodynamics, and this guy here comes from communication theory, then you can certainly relate to this guy and go to the other way around. I mean, just put this guy here and put this guy here, and you have a bound on the information that you can apply to quantum computation or cryptography. Like you say, for sure you can apply. It's just a matter of interpreting this guy in terms of the information process.
Because I know this is
I never thought
a
about
problem,
it.
right?
Yeah, and I never thought about this. But look, this is only classical.
Yeah, I just mean in a classical sense. I mean, this recent result that says if relating, the existence or not of one-way functions to, I guess it's to the computability or not the Kolmogorov complexity.
Mm-hmm.
So linking these two problems, but I don't know. It's just something.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. But as I told you, I never thought about this because I never thought in inverting this thing. But it's directly. I think that's direct. I would think about this. It's interesting. Questions? No? Let's change subjects. No. Now, quantum physics. I decided to do this instead of indefinite causal order because indefinite causal order, we see a bunch of papers there. And then I'm gonna try to present to you because quantum thermodynamics is extremely difficult to develop, is a theory under development, and there are several approaches. And this is one that I did with a friend of mine, and I'll try to link these things. It's not going to be too different. So, for Newton's law are fundamentally reversible. We know this, but we see reversibility all the time. I mean, if I let my glass of beer there, it will get warm. Sadly, that's life. So, from where these come from? Lack of knowledge. That if you lost information, the system is going to be irreversible to you. But where does ignorance come from? So, first, physical quantities must be defined in terms of length and time measurement. I don't know if you thought about this, but it's impossible to measure anything different from time and length. You never measure anything else. You compute everything else from length and time measurements. By the way, that's why you have just two fundamental constants in nature. Not three, not four, just two. H bar is not one of them. So the first thing that we needed to ask is, what is a macroscopic measure? A macroscopic measure that you do by the size of this table. The size of this table, the rulers and clocks that you use to measure these things here are much bigger than the fundamental length and time scales. Which means that the smaller divisor of any rule is much bigger than the average space of the atoms are vibrating. And the time, the ruler, the clocks that you use is much slower than the actual atomic scale. So what we measure is average of these guys. And that's makes the fluctuations go to zero. That's the thermodynamic equation. So that's the thing that we measure, and we see a few variables that emerge that can describe thermodynamics. That's where thermodynamics comes from. So it's possible to prove using symmetry arguments that you have just a few macroscopic variables that describe the entire system from a macroscopic point of view. Although you have a bunch of microscopic degrees of freedom. And one important thing, these variables, they simply don't care about the nature of the microscopic degrees. It doesn't matter if classical or quantum. It's the same. Thermodynamics is independent. It doesn't care about these things. So, classical thermodynamics. Classical thermodynamics relies on a subjective lack of knowledge. So then you can say. So you are saying that the thermodynamic entropy is subjective quantity? No, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying this. What does this mean? I mean, let us think about the question: is the sun hot? What's the meaning of this thing? The meaning is that the way we interact with the sun makes this interaction being governed just by a few macroscopic variables. We don't care about what's happening inside the sun. I mean, there are a bunch of physical processes that are happening in the sun. I mean, you have fusion, you have emission from radiation, you have a bunch of things there. You have gravity. We don't care about these things. We just care about the few variables that matter to us. And the interaction between these few variables with us makes us call the sun hot. So, if I give you the set of macroscopic variables, this one, and we are interacting with these variables, through these variables, the number of microscopic states that you cannot distinguish through these interactions is shear entropy. The logarithm of this guy is shear entropy. That's another meaning of shear entropy, actually. And that's the way we need to understand this word subjectively. Okay? So, quantum thermodynamics, the work that I want to show you, the same spirit. We simply say that the relevant physical quantities should be defined and not take into account the information contained in the full quantum state. In the same way, we don't take to describe classical thermodynamics, you don't take the full information about the classical system into account. So a bunch of information that is simply irrelevant for us. And then you can understand why gauge, because what gauge does. Gauge just wash away irrelevant information. That's the job of gauge transformation. That's why we propose the gauge. So, as I told you, there are several theories, several approaches to quantum thermodynamics. We are interested in this one. This is especially interesting. It's an axiomatic formulation of thermodynamics by Edward Lee, which just became a emeritus professor in Princeton. I mean, there are quite a few guys that got this one. This is one of these. This guy's brilliant. You should read this paper. Not this, but every paper that this guy writes. This guy's brilliant. Okay, we are interested in information. The general goal. How thermodynamic concepts like heat and work can be taken to the quantum realm where we have fluctuations, actually. So keeping the same spirit of classical thermodynamics, and based on the gauging variance principle, I will explain a little bit more this. We propose a gauge group that simply washes away the irrelevant information, irrelevant from the point of view of thermodynamics. I mean, from the point of view of microscopic dynamics or information theory, this is not irrelevant, because the information about the stage. So it's just irrelevant for the point of view of thermodynamics, and then we can build the thermodynamic quantities from these guys. Let us see how to do this. So in classical thermodynamics, we have a very low ability to control the system. We just know we can control volume, temperature, things like this, but that's it. So that's why information theory enters here in order to define the thermodynamic quantities. That's all the theories that have in the literature. But the full description, when we have the dense spread of the quantum system, this has a bunch of information there, including information about basis. So we have too much information there. We now have the ability to control the system totally. So this is too much information from the point of view of thermodynamics. Most of this information is redundant. That's why we apply gauge principle, because gauge principle. Do you understand gauge principle? I mean, gauge theory. When I say gauge theory, everybody knows what this is. I mean, electrodynamics, you can ask, I mean, no problem. Electrodynamics is a gauge theory. It's the first gauge theory that you saw, and the group is just, the symmetry group is just U1. But there are more complicated gauge theories. We just understand the gauge theories when, but much time after Einstein published his general theory of relativity, then we start to realize, look, looks like a gauge theory. And then we understand the importance of gauge. And now, all physical theories, the basic ones, which is under modern general relativity, are gauge theories. And then are based in the gauge principle. The gauge principle just say this. Electrodynamics, we have the potentials, I mean the scalar and vector potentials. And then there are infinitely many, because I can simply do a gauge transformation of these guys. And we have the same fields. That's the important thing. The important thing is the field. So the gauge theory here just takes us from the potential, from this infinitely many redundant potential, and takes us to the physical quantities that can be measured in level. Like scattering amplitude. Okay, the arrows are around here. Yeah, the arrows are around here. This should be to there and to there. Sorry for this. We just inverted these two arrows, and that's the interaction between the two electrons by exchange of a photon. It's a Feynman diagram. So it's a scattering amplitude. These we can measure in the laboratory. So these needed to be invariant. Otherwise, it makes no sense. It's a click in the detector. We propose the same thing. We have the role of the potentials here will be played by the dense operator. And we need to build a gauge group, this curly G here, that takes us from this guy, from this set, to the thermodynamic relevant quantities. That's the main idea. The problem is that how to build this guy. We need to start something. And we start by these definitions. First, we say that every relevant quantity can be written as a function of the dense operator. Which makes sense, because you have the dense operator, you can compute anything. Two of them that are extremely important is the average energy, which everybody knows, important for us in thermodynamics, and work. This form of work is the extension from classical order to the quantum order of the usual definition of work. I mean, this is just the integrated power, which is work in classical physics. So Robert Chalish, in this paper, proposed this guy as the quantum definition. And then this guy minus this guy is the H. Because of energy must be conserved. So these quantities are important, these quantities are functionals of the distribution. Oh, they depend on the Hamiltonian also, but it doesn't matter because anything must depend on the Hamiltonian. So, as I told you, the role of the potentials will play the by role, the density matrices. And this implies that the gauge transformations must be given like this. Note that we have a T here because this T is, this T here is not evolution. It's just a symmetry transformation at the same point in time. This is different from the evolution generated by the Hamiltonian. This is a different thing. And then we impose this thing. We impose that we need to start from something. The way we start is to impose that the average energy should be conserved. I mean, that's if I'm building a symmetry group, I need to impose that something must be conserved. Nothing better than the average energy, which nobody doubts that it must be a physical quantity. So, one important thing that's missing is that I'll not show the calculations here again, but if anyone wants to discuss this, we can go further. The important thing here is that we need to define integrals. We need to define averages. To define averages, we need to define what's going to be integrated. And I don't know if you thought about this, but we never integrate a function. What we actually integrated is a 1,4. It's a covector. That's the thing that we actually integrate. In this case, the higher measure. So we need to define a higher measure. Otherwise, we cannot define any quantity. Luckily, this guy is a subgroup of this guy, which is the group of all the matrices of dimension D, unitary matrices of dimension D. This implies that we have a higher measure, induced by the one in this guy that you already know. And you can prove that from topological point of view, we can prove that our group is isomorphic to this guy. This is the multiplicity of each eigenvalue. It can be degenerated. And I have P eigenvalues, and anyone can be degenerated. So we can prove this thing. And this is good because now we have the higher measure. Easily. Because it's already defined. We don't need to care about this thing. And then we define all the gauge invariant quantities. Easy, like we do in gauge theory. We pick up the guy, the functional that we are interested, work, energy, or anything else, and just take the group average. But in the group average, we have the guy that you call, that's the quantity invariant under this transformation. So, in the paper prove that this is actually invariant, but by definition it is invariant. And come back to work. Work as defined by Leschke is not gauge invariant because when we apply the transformation, we get this guy, which is the same as this guy, but we have this other thing here, less than 0. So it's not invariant. So what we do, we just pick up the definition of work, the integrated power, and put here, and compute the gauge, the gauge average. By computing the gauge average, we come out with this expression. So this is invariant under gauge transformation. That this group, the action of the group, is possible to prove this. Actually, it's proven in the appendix of the paper. And this small u is just the unitary transformation that diagonalizes the Hamiltonian. So this guy is the diagonal form of the Hamiltonian. But this is work. Since energy is already defined as being invariant, the difference between these guys gives us a heat, because energy must be conserved. So heat can be written like this. This is the way people usually write heat. I mean, like Leschke wrote in the 70s. And but here we have a different another part. And this guy here, we depends on the change in the Hamiltonian eigenbasis. So we are changing the eigenbases of the Hamiltonian. They're changing time. Because this guy is just a matrix whose columns are the eigenbases of the Hamiltonian. And this guy contains only coherences in these bases. Coherence is a base-dependent definition, so this guy contains coherences on these bases. So that's the definition of heat in work. In this thing, you can define any quantity you want. This thing, just a beautiful thing. You can rewrite those things exactly in the same form that we had before, but instead of normal derivative here, and here we have the covariant derivative. So this is the potential, which is just an holonomy of the group, and it's beautiful because it makes like this. And if you think that the potential changes like this, you can prove that this guy is invariant. It's easy to prove. Okay? So this is a very beautiful form of these guys. And these guys completely, arbitrary, they can choose anyone. Examples. So here is the linear block equation. We have the density operator, the evolution of the density operator, given that this is the Hamiltonian of the system. And this is the dissipator, which is the systems interact with some heat bath or some phase bath, weakly interact with this guy, otherwise I cannot write this equation. And our system is just a driven current. As simple as this. And then this is for the dephasing. This is the sigma z, the same here. And this is the dissipator for the amplitude dumping, exchange of energy in the system in a huge environment. This is the number of the average excitation that we have. So I think that everybody knows this thing is basically in one optics. So if we compute these things, we get that the invariant heat is just integrated power. The invariant work is the integrated power, and the heat is related to the dissipator like this. This is exactly equal to the usual result. Exactly. This means that our theory agrees with the usual one in this case, where we expected them to agree. For the dephasing, this guy is equal to 0. It's easy because we don't have exchange of energy between the system and the environment. And for the amplitude dumping is just the flux of energy, which is the usual result that we want to get. I mean, it's a quantum system, a small quantum system, that's a huge environment. Things have been different here. Let us consider a closed system, and the dynamics is that this guy is a qubit, and when I'm applying a field in the qubit, that's time-dependent field in the perpendicular direction. It's just very, very easy. And I sadly discovered that after too many calculations, I discovered that it's impossible to compute the evolution operator for this time. I mean, you simply cannot do this. Apparently, it's very easy, but I tried very, very hard. It's not possible. It's the only thing that can do is numerics. It's because this guy depends on time. It's incredible. But then the heat is given by this guy. So the heat depends on the coherences of the guy, but this guy changes the basis of the Hamiltonian. So if the basis doesn't change, then nothing happens. So the basis must be time dependent. And in other words, I need to introduce transitions in the energy base. So heat is related to transitions in the energy base that cause the system to be irreversible. Because you cannot follow these guys, they are random. Interesting, this guy here, these papers here, they simply put a thing like this. I mean, that heat depends on the transitions, but without justification, without anything else. And I mean, 2011, 2008, they simply defined the things like this. Nobody cared about these papers, actually. I don't know why. Here, we just built up a gauge theory that where these definitions simply emerge.
And look, the fact that the heat depends on the real part of the density image is because the time dependent part of the Hamiltonian is sigma x. If it was sigma y, I imagine you'd have the imaginary parts of the coherence.
I never did the calculations, but it seems correct because you change sign. So instead of this guy plus the complex conjugate, you're going to be this guy minus the complex conjugate. Yeah. But it's going to be real. We'll prove that this guy is always real.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's not a fundamental result that it's the real part that contributes to heat. It could be the imaginary part. It depends on the Hamiltonian.
But I think it is. I need to do the calculations, of course. But I mean, from what I remember, it's gonna change the sign in because here is this guy plus the complex conjugate of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Probably if I put sigma y here, I get a minus sign here, probably. But I need to compute these things. The important thing is that you will prove that this thing is always real. So there is no way that this guy be complex. This would be a problem. And here is the work which depends on the eigenvalues of the Hamiltonian. Because this is the dense, sorry, I didn't say this, but this is the dense operator in the energy eigenbasis. So this is stage 1 and stage 2 of the eigenvalues of the Hamiltonian. Okay. As I told you, it's not possible to solve that thing. Here is a measure of coherence. I mean, how much coherence is being generated. Of course, it doesn't make too much sense to talk about work and heat in a single qubit. This makes no sense at all. I mean, this is just to see that the work and the coherence behaves in the same way. So, let us say bigger system. This is a very well-known model, LMG model. This is the angular momentum operators, and this is the total angular momentum. So this can be as big as you want. Okay, this is just a driving function that you choose like this because we want to avoid the critical points of this model. Because we don't want effects of phase transition to not confusing things. So and in this thing we can go from very fast quantities, sudden quantities, to very slow changes when we expect very few transitions. And here we see that this is an arrow in the direction of increasing alpha, increasing the speed of the process. So this is the coherence, and this is the invariant heat, and we see that the heat scales with coherence in the same way we would expect. So as fast as you do the thing, more heat you generate, which is expected actually. I mean, classical thermodynamics is just like this. Otto cycle have a 4 strokes. 2 non-unitary with their equilibrations with the hot and cold bath, and 2 controlled unitary. Transformation with expansion compression. That's normal. So in general, what people do, because they associate entropy with the phenomenon entropy, but phenomenon entropy is invariant in the unitary transformation, so we don't have entropy being generated in the transformation. It doesn't matter how fast you do the thing. Now this obviously is a violation of the second law. We know that if you do things very fast, we generate more entropy. That's a fact. So if we apply our theory, as fast as you do the thing, more entropy will be generated, less work will be expected because heat will increase or decrease because the total energy is constant. And since the efficiency is defined by the work divided by the heat that comes from heat bath, not the heat generated, the efficiency will decrease with the speed of the process. This makes sense. I mean, this is what we expect. This is just one of the consequences. So, questions? Of course, we can apply this a bunch of things. We did some calculations and proved that the entropy actually is related to that heat. The invariant entropy is related to that heat over there. And we are studying things. I want to apply this for quantum phase transition now to see what happens. So the heat and work are defined in a different way based on a gauge principle. This is a different way to define heat. These guys here, they publish a paper discussing several definitions of work. All of them are inequivalent, but operationally well defined. So, as I told you, there is no single way to define this thing. Here we just defined that this quantity is based on a gauge principle that eliminates information that's not relevant to us, based on information in question people. No. Do we have time?
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Okay, let us try to do this in 20 minutes. Dynamic quantum phase transition. I think that everybody knows here what a phase transition is. Okay, this is important quantity in the theory. It's a partition function from where we can define all the thermodynamic potentials. And we know that thermodynamic potentials become non-analytic in the phase transition point. Like the usual one driven by temperature, we have a phase transition, this guy becomes non-analytic. This is the way I define this thing. Let us go to the dynamical case. So let us consider a closed system, which is Hamiltonian, that's time independent. We prepare the system in the ground state of this Hamiltonian, just like this. Then we change the quantum parameter suddenly from this value to this value. It causes a change from the Hamiltonian from this value to this value. And we let the initial stage of which is the ground state of the zero Hamiltonian to evolve the final state. Free evolve. This is closed, this guy doesn't depend on time. Everything is nicely computed like this. So, important thing here is Loschmidt-Jacob. I think that this is important in a bunch of fields in physics. But the Loschmidt-Jacob is just defined by this is the Loschmidt amplitude. It's just the overlap between the evolved state and the initial state. And this is the Loschmidt-Jacob, the square of the Loschmidt amplitude. But the ground state can be degenerate. Can have a manifold. The ground state, so we defined the probability of returning to the ground state as this sum here, to the ground state manifold. With any one of these are the ground state, one of the ground states that we have there. So the set of degenerate ground states of the Hamiltonian. But why this thing is relevant? Because there is a similarity between this guy and the partition function. And then we can define phase transition like this. So let's think about this guy as the partition function. This guy is the partition function, then this guy is like a thermodynamic potential. So when the thermodynamic potential becomes non-analytic, I have a phase transition. Well, not always, but we will see when exactly. What occurs is that there is a thing that's called a boundary partition, which is this guy here. This guy are the boundaries, psi and phi, and this guy is the distance between the boundaries. The precise definition of this guy doesn't matter. And this age here is the bulk Hamiltonian inside the boundaries. So it's possible to define this guy. In this way, we can see the Loschmidt-Jacob as if we identify this boundary as this guy, so we have a bound on time, a distance in time, then we can interpret the Loschmidt-Jacob as the partition function bounded by the ground state. We have exactly the same. So this is what the guys teach. Is look, this is the ground state, this is the ground state, this is I times t, which means that this is the Loschmidt, which is exactly the bounded partition function, but in complex plane.
So that could be like an energy constraint on the system or something.
Exactly. And anything like this. Usually it's an energy constraint. So we go to the complex plane and write this thing, and it's possible to write the Loschmidt like this guy. Not the Loschmidt amplitude, sorry. Like this guy. These guys are the energy eigenstates. We can be degenerated, it doesn't matter. This is analytical because it's a sum of analytical functions. So this function must be analytical in the complex plane. And there is this theorem. I don't know how to say the name of this guy. Anyway, there is this theorem that's possible to write this function like this. This is an analytical function. We don't care about this. And these are the zeros of this guy. So it's possible to do this. These guys are called today the Lee-Yang or Fisher zeros. They are defined. They are used to define the transition, the phase transitions. Okay? How to define a phase transition? Well, this guy we don't care because it's analytic. It doesn't matter. When I compute the zeros in complex plane, they happen to be on a line or on an area. I mean, you just compute the zeros, these guys here. This is the distribution of these guys here. When you take the thermodynamic limit, what happens is they converge to a line or to an area. When these guys touch the real axis, the phase transition occurs. That's the mathematical definition of phase transition. When the Fisher zeros touch the real axis, and these occurs in the thermodynamic limit. Okay, so we study transitions like this. So usually this guy here is the temperature, the complex temperature, and this guy is temperature, the real part of the temperature, the complex part of the temperature. So we define a phase transition driven by temperature change like this. Here we change the temperature by time and define phase transition specifically like this, in the same way. So that's why this thing is called dynamical quantum phase transition. Because it has the same property of phase transition, but occurs in time. So our model is like this. This is just the few eigenvalues of this guy. I don't remember the J that I used here, but it doesn't matter. It always happens like this. Under this line, we have a doubly degenerated spectrum. Here is not degenerated, so the symmetry was broken. And a phase transition is always related to a breakdown of symmetry or an emergence of symmetry. It's always like this. So this is the spectrum of this guy. This is this age here is this guy. So I choose this guy equal to 1. So it is dimensionless and measuring units of this guy. And I vary this guy. This is the average magnetization, time average magnetization. And we see that before the critical point, that's exactly the critical point of the system. Before the critical point, we have a positive value. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, but a non-zero value. After the critical point, you have a zero value. This is another parameter. This is the definition for a parameter that identifies the phase transition. So at this point, you have a critical point of the system. Here you don't have dynamical quantum phase transition. Here we have that. Just an example. Increase in J. We see that the Loschmidt oscillates like this, but it touches 0 here. Well, of course, this is a numerical thing. This function is analytic. It can only touch 0 in one single point. Because an analytic function, if it touches the 0 in 2 successive points, it must be 0 always. Otherwise, it's not analytic. So it just touches the 0 in one single point. Here appears that there's a bunch of points because of numerical measures. This is the rate function. Again, this guy is supposed to be a peak at infinity. It is a numerical error again, but this is what happens with the function. It is non-analytic at the critical times. So every time we get here, we have a phase transition, and we have the Fisher zero touching the real axis. how we study the thermodynamics of this guy. Okay, let us define the Rossini function. Rossini function is just the phase space representation of the entropy. This, I mean, of course, there is no phase space in quantum mechanics, but we can define several of them, and they are important for. One of them is important for one thing, the other one is important for other thing, and we can use these tools to understand physical phenomena, as long as we understand that it is not a probability distribution, because it's impossible. So this guy, omega here, is constructed like this. You pick up the biggest eigenvalue of the z component of the angular momentum, and define this guy like this. It's just rotations. Why is this guy coherent spin? Because of this. I mean, the set of eigenvalue. Of course, this is not a vector because angular momentum is not a vector. Angular momentum is an algebra. But when this guy goes to infinite, this guy becomes a vector, and this is exactly the spherical coordinates of the vector of the angular momentum vector. That's why it's called coherent state, because the coherent state of light is, I mean, people usually say that's the most classical state of light. So in analogy of this guy, they say, oh, these I have, it remembers me a vector, classical vector, so this is coherent speed state. But this is not a vector. So this is the definition of coherent state. Here we define the phase space of this guy, and the Rossini function defined like this. This quantity is very interesting. The distributions of the zeros of this guy is related to kinetic dynamics. It's very interesting. So then we define the entropy, like we did in channel entropy, but here we put Rossini function. So Rossini function we can put it there because it's positive and it's normalized. The integral of this guy, it's easy. If you integrate this guy of the entire phase space, you get a trace of the potential operator, it's 1, so it's normalized. And this guy here is just normalization factor. So this is the Rossini function. That is the entropy associated with the Rossini function. That's called this after this German guy here. That I don't know how to say the name. Again, I really don't know how to. A German friend told me how to say this, but it's impossible. But okay, it's this guy. And this paper here is very good because it discusses general properties of entropy. He just defined the entropy like here is a probability distribution, here is a probability distribution, and discuss the general properties of this function. It's very interesting, this paper. Old, but very nice. So the entropy production rate is just defined like this. The second law of thermodynamics demanded that these happen. It should be positive, always. The problem is that the second law of thermodynamics just apply for a system in thermodynamic equilibrium. Here you have a closed system out of equilibrium. So this does not hold here, but we expected that this holds on average for complex enough systems. And this is what happens when we have dynamical quantum phase transition. This is the size of the system that's increasing because this happens only in the thermodynamic range. Out of the thermodynamic equilibrium, we don't have phase transition. So for small values, this guy oscillates, but for bigger values, this guy converges. It oscillates, but on average, it increases monotonically, which is expected for a system that is thermalizing. I'm not discussing thermalization here, the closed system, because it's a complicated issue. It implies spreading of information over the entire system, which means that locally the information is being unavailable. And people think that the experimenter thinks that the system is equilibrium. This is the entropy production. As I told you, there are parts where the system is negative. But it's okay because it's out of equilibrium, it doesn't need to hold but it holds on average. Now, what you want to do is relate this guy with the critical time. The critical times here. So these are the critical times. So I pick up every one of these points here, the times, the critical times, and compare with these guys. The time at which the entropy production is maximum. And I plot one against the other, and what you have is these. This guy is, of course, small, very small system, we don't expect anything. But as long as the system is increasing, we have line. So these guys are linear related, but not 45 degrees here, which means that the maximum in entropy occurs a little bit earlier than the transition. This is because the system, the information starts spreading very fast all over the system, because the system is becoming critical, which means that correlations are being developed, and the correlation length is becoming infinite. So the entropy must be produced, entropy starts increasing, and then you get a maximum. And then the system goes away of the phase transition, and everything comes back to the usual thing, and then entropy decreases. That's what's happening here. That's the main result of the paper. Okay. So, quantum phase transition occurs in complex system, time. That's a very nice definition. We are studying several things of these sort of systems now, and one thing that I saw is that many features of chaotic systems, and if we use tools from chaos theory and apply here, many behaviors of chaotic systems, we see also here. But the problem is that why? I mean, what's the characteristic in common that you have in chaotic systems and in systems that have a dynamical quantum phase transition that makes these guys behave the same way? That leads to thermalization. That's the thing that I'm trying to convince my students to do the calculations. So, this is on average the entropy monotonically increases, which is expected from a very complex system. And just like the case of equilibrium phase transition, we can define a thermodynamic theory for this guy. This was the first paper that studied thermodynamics in these sources. Well, okay, we studied the entropy based on the Rossini function. It's not actually the thermodynamic entropy. The thermodynamic entropy, the paper of thermodynamic entropy is being written now, and behaves in the same way. It's the same thing. But it's much more complex to compute the thermodynamic entropy in this case. Okay, questions, please, because we find it. And Leticia.
Exactly.
So, the promise of virtual physics.
Perguntas? On just the last thing you were talking about, you said on average, the entropy increases with time. You mean like a time average, or if you average over the state's row that you have, what do you mean by average?
By average, I mean if an average this curve.
So like a time average, like that.
Yeah.
So time interval, but what we wash away.
I do increase.
And I guess you say it's out of it, you're considering an initial pure state.
In the brown state, the brown state, yes.
If you average over, say a thermal distribution of pure states or whatever, then you.
But we need to take care because if I start with a thermal stage, then these things is problematic. The definition of polar partition point is problematic. There are some definitions of dynamical quantum phase transitions when considered a mixed system, but this thing is problematic. So this is actually a close to the system, and we need to start with the ground stage. If you start with any other stage, it doesn't work.
So this is the problem of working in a finite dimensional system.
Finite dimensional system, yeah. It's finite, but this guy can be as big as you want. And in the end, you have to take the thermodynamic element. So.
And why do you use Gaussian function? Can you use linear function as well?
Yes, you can. You can, but the problem is that if you put linear function here, it's negative.
Yeah.
And then entropy is going to be complex. And then we don't know the meaning of complexity. That's the point.
Pero una pregunta, pero ese es como un constraint más matemático que, o sea, igual es físico por la entropía, pero en principio la función de Wigner igual podría como físicamente servir como una función de espacio-tiempos.
Yes, I mean we can use the Wigner entropy here. Actually, there are works that use the Wigner entropy, but you have to restrict the system. The stage of the system must be a Gaussian stage. Then you guarantee that the Wigner function is positive, then everything works well. But if not, then the Hamiltonian must be quadratic. Otherwise, bad things happen.
Entonces me pregunté con cualquier función de espacio y probabilidad que sea positiva podría servir como...
Let us think about the Glauber P function. It diverges. So in principle, we can use any function, but all of them have problems. These also have a problem because if I'm studying here, I'm studying the entire system, so there is no problem. But let's suppose that the Danish operator is bipartite, a bipartite system. So the margin of this guy is not the probability distribution. So you cannot compute local quantities. For a full thing, you can, but so the Wigner function, the marginals are the probability distribution.
Otra pregunta, que en termodinámica, cuando uno tiene una transición de fase, hay algún general, como que intentamos verlo como que hay un fenómeno que ocurre en ese momento, ¿cierto? En quantum phase transition, ¿hay algún fenómeno como especial que describa o describe mejor como...
I don't know if I understood your question. We have let us think about classical phase transition, driven by temperature. When I change temperature, then something in the stage changes. Usually the ground stage changes to solidity. Here is the same thing. This guy here, what is the point? Think about the usual, this guy has a usual phase transition, quantum phase transition. So it happens, I don't remember the value, but I think that this guy is equal to 1, and then you have a phase transition. What means here is that you have all the spins in the ground stage are pointing in this direction for a very small h. And then they keep pointing there. And you increase age. There is no time here, just increasing the value of age, the value of transverse age. What happens at the critical point is that everybody changes. So we change the symmetry of the system. That's the phase transition, the usual phase transition. This is what happened. Of course, different things occur in different systems, but usually what you have is a change, an abrupt change in symmetry of the system, in some symmetry. Or you destroy the symmetry, or you create a symmetry. In the dynamical case, we have some changes also, but the critical point in the equilibrium phase transition here is different from the critical point of the dynamical case. We don't know why. We don't know what's happening actually. This sort of thing was invented by a German guy called Marcus Heil. And once I wrote to the guy, I said, look, why the initial state should be degenerate? Because if I start in a phase that the initial state is not degenerate, this doesn't happen. And he told me that he doesn't know. And the guy studied this thing since 2014. And he simply doesn't know. So this is a very new thing here that we actually don't understand. But many people are studying this thing at the moment and to try to understand what's happening.
In the second topic, I think you said that the gauge transformation was related to quartz graining. Is that correct? It wasn't clear.
Well, it's not
Maybe
related to quartz graining. We are making a quartz graining in the sense that we pick up a set of states that has the same mean energy. And if we start with this guy here and apply some process, it ends up in the future in another manifold in certain points there with some energy. What I mean is that if I pick up any one of these guys related to this D transformation, it will end up at the same point. It doesn't matter because the system cannot distinguish between these guys. So this is the sort of course way. These guys are relevant for us. Of course, they will not, but we think about this. You can only measure energy in the system. And if you have a very big system, that's what happens. You cannot measure in different places. You cannot measure coherences if the dimension of the system is very big. So we can only measure energy. For sure, there are a certain set of states that I cannot distinguish from each other just by measuring energy. These are related by the gauge transfer. I cannot simply distinguish this guy. Of course, if I can do quantum state tomography, then I don't need to do thermodynamics, so I know everything about this. Thermodynamics makes no sense to me. That's the point of the gauge. That's the meaning of quartz graining. You are simply not able to measure. The experiment that I did with Paulão, we had angular momentum equal to 50, which means 31 states. You cannot do quantum state tomography. So the only thing that you measure is energy. The coherences, we simply lost coherence.
Yes, sem outras perguntas, vamos.